one of the most interesting things to me that I really love to hear from people, but it takes a while to like get this out of them, is what their legitimate, like, actual first impression of me was. And I was talking with Jalila the other night because we're in the middle of watching this show called Love is Blind. And you basically, the premise of the show, if you're on Netflix, is that you basically meet and talk and date these people without actually seeing them. And then eventually you do see them. And, you know, I was asking her, like, hey, what was your first impression of me? And she, like, told me all about it.
I was there for that. Well, maybe not the first impression, but I was there for the first time you guys talked.
For the
At the gym.
For the what's the where are your organs question?
Yes.
Okay,
I was there.
I didn't know if you were there for that one, but
I was.
so that was the
It
first.
was like mildly uncomfortable.
Oh, I mean, I'm not surprised. What was so funny is, like, I was thinking about how classic of a Richard line is that. Be like, excuse me, Miss Question, where are your organs? Like, what a dumb pickup line. But anyway, so we got to talking, and I was like, so she's like, yeah, at the time you weren't really using your wheelchair. She's like, I knew that you did use a wheelchair. She's like, I saw you walking around, but I knew it was different, but I couldn't put my finger on it. She's like, but what I did see was the beard, the tattoos, the muscles, and the little, like, stringy bean t-shirt, like, shirt you were wearing. She's like,
she was like, don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk. Go, oh, shit, he's coming to talk to me.
She was like, honestly, I wanted to avoid you at all costs. And she goes, I didn't even notice that you were walking weird because I was too busy judging you for being a douchebag fuckboy. And I was like, whoa, damn. She's like, but the moment you opened your mouth, my perception was immediately changed.
My perception was changed. I knew for a fact he was a fuckboy. I'm just kidding.
and it's funny because, like, my perception of her too is like, I got the vibes of, like, the shy nerdy girl. Like, I got shy nerdy girl vibes from her. And then when I went and talked to her, and she was just so dope. She was like a bro, you know what I mean? I was like, oh damn, like this changed my perception too. And I'm always like just so curious. I mean, even like strangers in public or people that I meet, that I talk to, or, you know, I think everyone is on the edge of their seat, you know, like, what happened to him? Like, what are these things in the past?
Oh, yeah.
Like, what
I get the questions.
Like, what are these things, you know, that he talks about when he's like, yeah, I've been through some hard times, but, you know, I've been able to make it through. And, you know, she goes, I was always wondering, is the wheelchair one of the hard times? And it's like, yeah. But it was just really interesting to dig into her perspective. And, you know, I always am so genuine, like, curious, like, what do these people think of me, and, you know, what is their perception of me, and then when they talk to me or when they not talk to me. And, you know, even recently, like, I've been, you know, meeting and hanging out and talking with some people that mostly only know me for my online presence, and then they meet me in person and they're like, wow, not what I expected. But, like, in a good way, because like you guys in the podcast, you guys know me really well. Like, you get, like, a jovial, friendly, goofy, kind, like, you understand my thoughts. But, like, when I'm on video,
you're
like,
not jovial on video, bro. Just kidding.
Well, I don't know. I just, like, on video, like, I can come off as, like, I can see why people think I'm some, like arrogant, douchey cock. You know, like, I understand why they might think that, or it could fit whatever model they have in their head. You know, whatever. The bottom line is, I just am always so intrigued by people's, you know, perspectives of, you know, what wheelchair users are, or what it's like to, you know, be in a wheelchair, or just in general, like, what they think. And
the first time I met you, I didn't really know what to expect because I thought you were in a wheelchair. But then when you, like, came outside and walked, I was like, okay. Like, I honestly was just like, I'm just going to go into this with, like, no, like, expectations, because I knew I was going to sit down and have a talk with you because it was to record a podcast. So I was just like, I'm like, okay, I guess he walks a little bit too. Like, cool. Like, I think I saw him in a wheelchair, but, like, I didn't know if it was, like, permanent. I didn't know if it was, like, I just had, like, no idea.
That was when I was at the art studio, and I think there was 4 or 5 steps to get up, in and out.
Yeah, so it just, like, was annoying.
And, you know, I remember I didn't have my crutches with me at the time, and I just kind of, like, waddled down the hill and, like, gave you a hug and then, like, waddled back up. But as soon as I got back inside, I plopped back in the chair.
Yeah.
I'm always so just curious.
That conversation is weird. Going back and listening to that first podcast,
Is it?
because I was just asking so many like weird questions that now I'm like, oh, that's funny. Like
Episode 47 for any of you guys who want to go back.
back on my old podcast,
the
the Andrew Deitch podcast.
Andrew Deitch podcast, episode 47.
Yeah, it was just so funny because like there's just so many things where you're like I'm kind of leading you and you're kind of like it's a long story kind of thing, and it's just funny because now I know like why you're kind of like laughing about it, because it's like, oh, so like, do you think you're ever gonna walk again, or like things like that, and you're like, well, like, you know what I mean, like, it's
you're
just,
like, that's like a 45-minute answer right
yeah,
there.
exactly. There's so many things where like we get into it and it's just like, oh my god, that's so funny that I didn't know that, or I thought that, or whatever.
Well, but that podcast was really important to me in my development and my growth, because I had never told my story in full to anyone ever, and then it goes public, and it gets like
that's weird,
and it gets like a good response, and then even myself, like, I had a real skewed perception of, you know, my life and my story, and, you know, what was important and what wasn't important, and blah blah blah. And then I like listened to that podcast probably 4, 5, 6, I don't even know, a bunch of times, just kind of being like, wait a minute, that's me?
yeah,
Like,
right.
it just kind of like blew me away, because I was even kind of getting like
Inspired by your own story.
yeah, and I still kind of do that too. Like, even in my current state, you know, where I'm healing from this injury, like, I'm going back and watching some of my old videos, and I'm like, damn it, Richard from the past, why you got to be right? You know, like, I'm like, I use my own videos to kind of like pump myself up and motivate myself, because like I do have wisdom and I do have experience, and a lot of the times I don't even want to hear what I have to say. Like, you've even like pulled some stuff on me before where I'm like, quit using my words on me. You know, it's like, quit saying what I was going to say to me if I would say it to me. Okay.
WWRD.
It was perfect. AJ, do you remember your first impression whenever you met me?
I do. So it was around the time when I first started working for Andrew and doing the Andrew Deitch podcast. And I remember hearing about you and the project of Wheels to Walking in like early development. And
this was before we did anything public, or like before we went to LA the first time. And
yeah,
I
think this was like a little bit after that.
No, because me and AJ met for the first time like almost exactly a year ago, and we had just gotten back from LA at that point, right?
yeah.
So like we had just done our first like Wheels to Walking trip, but we hadn't like launched the Why Do I Walk? How can I walk? Whatever the one.
Yeah.
The one that has 1,000,000.7.
I remember
views.
seeing like the early edits of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
little asterisk side note before you move on. For those of you who are really loving this podcast, and every week you're like, yes, new podcast, we have 40 plus on our Patreon. So it's
40 plus old episodes.
Old episodes. It's $1. They're super old. They're archaic. They're done on different microphones. We're mostly just dicking around, and
it's way more casual and way more like just raunchy and
raunchy.
Yeah,
hair
way
down.
more
It's
hair
way
down.
more hair down. But one of the things I wanted to point out was like, I think I've been re-listening to them just to like kind of catch some perspective about what's happened in a year. You know, to really like help me be like, oh, okay, like we've done a lot. We can do more. Whatever. And one of the episodes you and I were talking about for like, I think like 50 minutes straight about like how unique and recognizable I am, and how I can take that and use it to my advantage. And it came off a cock. Like, it's so egotistical, and I'm cringing the whole time, because the point I was trying to make was like, hey, Wheelie Boys, like, don't be ashamed of who you are. Like, you need to like embrace your uniqueness, and like you're going to be memorable. So like, don't think that you stand out for the wrong reasons. But I never made that point. We just keep talking about like, yo, I'm so unique. When I go into like bars, like bouncers let me in the side door. You know, like I'm so unique that like everyone remembers me. Like I kept like I'm cringing so fucking hard.
I remember this conversation. We've had it a lot of times actually.
Yeah, but it's always in the context of like,
it's in the context of use that fact to your advantage.
Yeah, use all that unwanted attention for a good reason. But anyway,
Yeah.
so continue, AJ. I just wanted to remind everyone all those
of the old podcasts
there's
that they exist.
tons of podcasts exist, but please forgive us. We even did one where we were like laying in bed and I started playing on my phone in the middle of the episode.
I called you out.
You're like, are you on your phone? I'm like, yeah. Another one I did in my underwear while we're drinking LaCroix and burping the whole time.
Literally, that happened. I'm pretty sure there's one where you like farted. Like there's like a bunch of crazy stuff. Like
There was
seriously,
one where we
if
started talking about tabs. AJ, you know what we're talking about. When you open up all your tabs on your special websites.
Oh yeah.
We had to talk about that at the
We're
house.
not talking about that now, but we're saying on the old
Yeah. Anyways, go listen to it.
So
AJ, what was first impression of Richard?
Continue on
AJ.
first impressions, yeah.
All right, so it first started when I had a small gig. I was just helping a friend out do a video, and I met Andrew's brother, Matthew, and Matthew was like hyping Andrew up. He's like, dude, Andrew just bought this new camera. He just bought this new computer. He just got this, and he's been working with this new client named Richard. And then he showed me this like hype video with like the old
Yeah.
And then he's like wheeling around with like going in circles. I'm like, oh dude, this guy's
It was
dope.
probably the confined video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I've never really had a bad perception on people in wheelchairs like at all. I like understand that culture a little bit. So the first episode I was on was Ed Bolian. Don't remember what episode number that is. But
Oh yeah, I showed up after
Mhm.
and like talked to Ed for a little while.
Right.
Yeah, because basically I had already set up the podcast studio in Richard's place, but AJ hadn't started working with me yet. So it was like, it was AJ's first time being in Richard's apartment, but hadn't met Richard yet.
No, but I was there before. Like the first time we met, you're like, the studio's up here, and I was like, okay, let's go look at it. Well, you were
Did
like,
you
let's
meet
go look
Richard
at it.
though?
I didn't meet him at the time. You just
Oh,
showed me the
okay.
studio
Yeah,
space.
yeah.
And then
But you probably met me at the end of the Ed Bolian episode.
at the end of the Ed Bolian episode, you came in. You're like, "Hey, I'm Richard." I'm like, "Oh, this is the cool guy. This is the cool guy." And I was like so intrigued. I was like, "Oh, dude, this guy's dope." And then, as I got to know Richard, I even thought he was even more dope, and even more dope. And I
well, shit, man.
just really, really cool guy. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
I guess
But-
it's the idea of like you got a lot of like pre-introduction to me. I guess
I got a lot of just like watching that video, I was just like, oh yeah, this guy's cool. But
yeah, and then I was talking about you and stuff because we had a meeting like down at Panera.
down at Panera,
Mm.
Yeah, so
which
Yeah.
is somewhere not
not
anywhere close or far.
Yeah, so about that. Hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want the full episode, you can click right here. If you want to subscribe, click here. If you want more clips, we got 2 more right over here.